Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And let's take a look at the mythical Stormbringer Rimuru, the brand new EX character for the 2.5 anniversary, Part 3, 6% rate up, Exalted Champions meta, and he seems to be kind of just mid, unfortunately. Why is he mid? Well, we're going to find out today. So, Light, Magic, Exalted Champion, Shizu Will, Autogram, Demon Lord, uses a sword. A lot of people use a sword, okay. Does an AoE light magic attack with a small magic attack buff when you launch it, so you send him first and people after him will do more damage. His first skill is a 70% attack buff, which is pretty hefty, especially for 55 points. This is not a small skill, and remember that on the Exalted Champions team, this 70% gets increased with the Drago effect, so it's actually 84% attack on the Exalted Champions team. Otherwise, it's just a straight 70. So, I mean, it can be pretty powerful. And then his second skill is the triple alt swap to Rainbow Orbs. So it doesn't matter what team you're running. If you have an alt, you can change it to a rainbow orb and you can combo that with literally any other color. It is a one use per fight skill, though, as all rainbow or unity orbs are, or have been, up until this point. So, pretty limited, one time, meant for burst team, which he's on a burst meta, makes sense. This skill, I mean, we'll test and we can show you the statistics versus, other support units. His Valor trait is a magic seal, which is very, very nice. This is probably one of the best Valor traits in the game, so it's good that he has that. His actual trait is not as good. 6 combo of greens, you lower defense by 3 up to 5%. Defense down is probably the weakest debuff in the game, and this is just not a good trait. So dupes, unnecessary for this character. But let's go ahead and test him out. Alright, so we're going to go into Inferno 1 of the beatdown battle using this team. New Velzard, Veldora, Visions of Coleus, Violet for that big time magic buff, new Rimuru, Guy, and Milim. And so we're going to run it as the way we have been. Rimuru is taking the spot of Shizuka that I was using previously. So let's see, how much damage we can get out of this full team with, every buff active. Okay, so turn 1, we'll go ahead and bring Guy in for Violet so we can use Veldora's orb change properly. Boom, 6 greens. We'll then bring Milim in for Veldora, and we'll send this entire hand, not that way. We'll send it properly, there we go. So 6 greens, so 7,000 damage from Rimuru, 7,000 damage from Guy because he's not type advantage. Neither of them are type advantage. And then Milim, she does a lot more because she is type advantage. Boom, perfect. We got mostly Milim orbs. That guarantees that we're going to get her alt. So now, what we're going to do, and what you're going to see, is we're going to use Guy's alt rush ability. Synergy resistance down, space and wind alt gauges up 100%. Cool. Notice how that didn't hit Rimuru. Notice how he does not have an extra alt gauge. Why? Because he's not space or wind. So he doesn't really fit on this team as far as synergy is concerned to begin with getting, a lot of alt. Kind of unfortunate. So now, let's go ahead and bring in Veldora. We'll use his green buff and his magic resistance down. Boom. And now all these greens are going to give 70%. We'll bring Violet in. And then we actually have enough points, throughout this fight to actually use this synergy buff right here. And it's just going to help us do extra damage against Soe. So, yeah, we can watch Velzard bend over. Sure, why not? But we haven't yet used Rimuru, and I'm going to try my best to use both of his skills here. It's just that with this team setup, the amount of damage that Milim does with her full nuke vastly outdamages Soe's HP bar. So it's like there's not really a good place for me to swap the ult away and to do it again and again and to really maximize what this team wants to do until we get to Jubilee or something like that. So here, okay, perfect. we can use the magic buff now, or we can wait. So let's actually bring Rimuru in. Boom. Let's swap the alts away. Boom. Okay, so now they're rainbows. Like, okay, cool, perfect. What does that do? It means that we're going to get maximum protection, skill point, and alt gauge off this one orb. 2 orbs now. And Velzard will change these orbs right here. It's not going to change the rainbows. It doesn't work like that. But now, let's use the attack buff, I guess. Boom. We don't need Milim up front, right? We don't want her up front. So let's go ahead and send her away. Boom. Now it's Veldora. He comes in. Cool. We'll use Velzard again. We don't need to see that every time now. And we have 60 points. Let's do another green buff, because we've got it. We might as well reapply it so that next turn we can do maximum damage, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. This gets us Rimuru's ult, Guy's ult, so we can use both of their skills, both their ult effects to help Milim do more damage next turn. 54k. Okay. So Veldora doesn't have an orb, unfortunately. That's not what I was looking for. So let's go ahead and push another turn, and we'll hopefully get a Veldora orb. We got a Veldora orb. Okay. That's the important part. So. We don't have the magic buff on, do we? No, we don't. We should have brought Violet in. Well. Oh well. We're going to be missing some kind of buff here. So Veldora comes in. We already have the attack buff from Rimuru on, so let's reapply the synergy buff. Boom. And who has a higher effect? 5% magic attack, 15% defense down. Let's do the magic attack one. So let's get Guy out of here. We'll put the magic buff, boom. We'll do the personal buff for Milim, and we'll use Velzard. And we'll see how much damage we get out of this after sending Rimuru first to get that extra little bit of power. And we can also see his ult, because, he's the showcase unit. So boom, boom. So Rimuru, his ult looks really good. I will not deny that. His ult is very flashy. It goes on for quite a while, and he's doing a lot. And surprisingly, there's a lot of, scenes in between that I can take thumbnail shots from. So that's very nice. Vortex Gaia. He's not going to do a lot. He's not fully buffed up, but he's here to support. Yeah, 203k, not the biggest, but whatever. Milim, though. Milim is going to be a recipient of everything now, plus that 5%. So what kind of damage do we get here with her Buster Cannon arm? 4.53 million. That's a lot of damage. 4.5 million. But we can do better without this Rimuru, which is a problem. But let's show that problem in effect. Okay, we are back on turn 5. We took new Rimuru out for old Space Rimuru, OG Space Rimuru, who is skill fused. So 40% attack, 30% ult resistance down. So combined, it is a 70% buff, quote unquote. Damage calculations aside, the number adds up to the same. But they will do very different things, which is strangely surprising and also not great for new Rimuru. So obviously we don't have new Rimuru, so we're not going to be able to launch his ult and get that extra 5% magic attack. So we could instead send Guy and use the defense down, but I don't want to do that. I just want to pretend that, that Rimuru does not exist, and we're just going to use this right here as it stands. So let's go ahead and use the personal buff plus the attack buff from the new Rimuru. We already have the magic, and we already have the synergy buff from Guy applied, so we don't need to worry about that. And now let's compare damage between new Rimuru and his ult effect versus OG Space Rimuru, skill fused, and Milim's attack buff. So we're just going to launch the ult. And we do 4.82 million. It's a little bit more than what we did with the brand new Rimuru, which isn't good. That's not a good thing, okay? The fact that we can use a unit that came out literally 2.5 years ago, got his skill fusion, I think, for the second anniversary 6 months ago, a lot of skill fusions are bad. A lot of them. His was actually good, and it still holds up because it out damages a unit that came out 2 hours ago. So by using an old character, yeah, you don't have the rainbow alt swapping ability, but we didn't need it here, right? We didn't need to use it. We did too much damage anyway. We did even more damage than last time. There's no point for me to hold the alt. We're good. So that's a concern right there. An immediate concern that a 2.5-year-old unit is out damaging. Granted, he has to be level 100 and skill fused, but notwithstanding, they give out a lot of shards to get that Rimuru done. They do not give out a lot of crystals to summon for that new Rimuru. So let's move on. Let's put him on a different team now, where maybe he can be a little bit more effective. Okay, so here we're going to go with the Light 3.0 team into the EX5 Tempered Edge versus Veldora. He's got quite a bit of health, and we're going to bring, Shuna, Raphael, Lumi. We're going to bring Megamine for the alt buff and the orb changing. We're going to bring Summer Shizu for her weakness strike and her single alt swap. And we're going to bring the new Rimuru, because now instead of Light Milim, who has her own personal blue orb change for her own orbs, and then the 45% light buff, we're going to just offset that with Rimuru's 70%, which is higher. I mean, Milim does also have a 30% resistance down. I think it's 30? Yeah, so technically, I mean, that's 75%, quote unquote, again, hardcore math. Don't quote me on it, but, the numbers add up. Even though I know realistically they're calculated different times. They do different things. But, we're going to have a single alt swap here, which we might need more than one. And then we have Rimuru, who's going to, for one turn only, use his Rainbow alt swap ability. And on an 8-turn stacking team, we're going to have alts eventually. And one alt orb change just isn't going to cut it at that point. So let's watch it happen in action. Okay, so turn 1, we can bring you in, and we can bring Megamine in. They all have turn 2 protection traits across the entire board. Lumi and then Blanc underneath her, Megamine and Violet underneath her. Especially with Megamine, you don't want to ult with her, right? She is lore accurate, and after she ults, she becomes useless for a turn. So you don't want to ult with her unless you are intending to nuke with her. That's a very good turn 2 right there. It's a lot of Lumi orbs, but it's just a green orb change, so we will definitely take that. We've got 2 stacks of Shuna here, which we can, go ahead and skip that. Perfect. So with any stacking team, right, if you were thinking of putting this new Rimuru on a stacking team, it certainly could work. But you do have to keep in mind that there are a lot of units and a lot of teams that already... Okay, well, there's a problem right there. Immediately, that is a problem that could have been solved by bringing Light Milim instead, because we have 4 oranges. Megamine changes 2, that's great. And the new Rimuru, he only converts alts to rainbows. We have no alts. If we had Light Milim here, we could have brought her in for Raphael and changed 1, 2, 3 orbs, and then we could have just used Megamine and changed that last one, and we would have been hunky-dory, right? But now, we're screwed. But I don't want to double up and bring Milim and the new Rimuru at the same time, because they both have attack buffs. So it's not really... I wouldn't say it's not doable, because you certainly can. It's just maybe not the smartest play as far as team building is concerned. So, I mean, let's come back on turn 3 when we don't have a crap hand. Okay, it literally took 6 more attempts to get a good turn 3. I got 2 turns in a row where I got 4 oranges, just like, the initial run. The game, as soon as I want to do a showcase, it says, no, don't even bother. So finally, we got a good turn 3. This is going to be 5 stacks now of Shuna that we're going to be able to use here. And, we're looking good. But now we're getting to the point where we do have alts. And, it is easy enough to deal with 1 or 2 on this team. But once you have, 4 characters who have alts, that's when things become a problem. Especially since you have 1 character who you don't want to ult with ever, because then you lose your orb changer. So Megamine, not a great option to use. So let's go ahead and bring in Shizu, because we can just swap Raphael out, and we can do this instead. So alt swap, orb change, that'll take care of everything. And since Raphael has the ult now, he doesn't need to be up front for anything, right? So we can go ahead and do this. We can continue getting stacks of Shuna, and we're going to hold on to the Rimuru buff until we have like 3 ults, and there's nothing we can do about it. That's an awful hand right there. Okay. Let's alt swap that again. Boom. Let's go ahead and get Shizu out now. That'll take that orange away. And then we can put a stack on. And then we can pull in this blue orb. And then we can continue to use Lumi and Megumin's orb change. So, you know, we're playing to our strengths and the orbs coming in and out. So boom, there we go. Orb change. So I want to make Rimuru's skill useful in the best sense. You don't want to use it when there's only 1 orb, right? Because, you know, there are a lot of other units that can do 1 or 2, well, maybe 1 orb. You want to maximize the value of that skill, and to do that, you're going to want triple ults. So here, let's go ahead and bring you back in for Rimuru. We'll take that green. Perfect. And then we'll put a double stack on. We're getting another blue orb, so we just have to use the Megumin orb change here, and we'll be all set, which is great. We're on turn 6, but turn 7, we're going to have a Lumi ult, a Raphael ult, and a Megumin ult. And, you know, we can't triple orb, or, triple ult swap that away, so let's take Raphael out. I mean, technically we can do Megumin, huh? It doesn't really matter. Let's do Megumin, sure, why not? And then we will alt swap this away, boom. And now next turn we will have, 3 alts here. Yeah, 3 alts. So 111, 5300. All right, good damage. But I don't want to send these alts for, Lumi and Raphael, because they're not going to kill in one shot with, the power that we have. If it was an EX alt, sure, but we don't have access to that. So another stack. We want to go one more turn, and we want to be able to... Wow, this is actually perfect. So let's bring you in for Shizu. Boom. So, looking at this hand, like, it's all Rimuru. It's all Raphael. So we could use the rainbow now, change us to rainbows, and now we can full combo this, because even though they're not blues, right, we certainly could, right, bring them in, but then we'd have to contend with another ult. So we could have maybe swapped Lumi out or something. There were ways to get around this, but I wanted to use this effectively as possible, and this is a pretty effective means. So we can send this full hand, because the rainbows will combo, and the rest of the orbs are Raphael. So this was a very, very good usage of the skill, and now we are ready to ult on turn 8. Lumi and Raphael are going to be able to get all of the necessary buffs that we have on this team. That's a lot of Rimuru orbs, sure, okay. And so let's go ahead and stack that last one on, and then we'll apply the 70% attack buff for 55 points. It's relatively cheap, right? It's a pretty good skill for what it needs to do and what it needs to be. We'll bring Shizu in for Rimuru. We'll put the weakness strike on our 2 light units. That skill right there. Boom. And then we will bring Megumin in and use her 80% ult buff. And then the 80 points go from Lumi, and then the 2 skills from Raphael, and we have used all the primary buffs on this team. So, let's see how much damage Raphael does, then Lumi, then Megumin, and then we'll follow up. So, Raphael, he does 2.1. Okay, we didn't even need Lumi. But there was an efficient use. I mean, that was good damage for a very old team. This was New Year's of 2023, so over a year and almost a half ago. That's good damage. Rimuru definitely helped out on that team. I can't call him useless, right? 70% attack buff for characters who don't already give themselves an attack buff, and that up to a triple ult swap to rainbows means that we could combo that entire hand, which does bring versatility to his kit, because yes, you can put him on a number of teams and make it useful, whether it be stacking, whether it be a burst team. He can bring value, but I don't think I finished this train of thought earlier. A lot of characters who are nuking give themselves an attack buff already. So a 70%, while yeah, it might be higher, it's better not to double up for an extra like 10 or 20%. It's better to bring an entirely new buff to the team. That way it can, stack on top of each other. So like this Hinata right here, we could put this Rimuru on the Fount of Wisdom, but Hinata is already giving a 60% attack buff. So it's like we're bringing it for the 10% attack and the alt swap. I mean, sure, maybe. I wouldn't think that's a very efficient use of our skills. The Visions of Coleus team, right? Jean, they technically don't have an attack buff, right? They have alt damage, synergy power, and all that. So you could put this Rimuru on the team. But the thing is, like, do you want to? Do you want to put him on the team in place of a different character? If you have all the necessary pieces. That's the question. That's the thing. If you have them. So, like, Warrior's Mind, Guy, Fount of Wisdom Rimuru, Lumi, Earth Rimuru, Violet. This is a very complete team. Orb changing, orb changing, orb changing, alt rushing and alt swapping ability, buffing, 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 buffing. Like, this is a very complete team. If I had all these characters, would I put the new Rimuru on this team? Probably not. Because, I mean, you could swap out this Rimuru, sure, and you would have that alt swap ability for everybody, but only once. And after that, you're fucked. So you got to play it. You got to play around. You got to be smart about it. And I feel like that's just kind of unnecessary. I'm not replacing him for this Rimuru because I need an orange orb changer. This Lumi, once you get to turn 8, her buff is way much better. And this Violet, her buff is also way better than what Rimuru is going to do on turn 8. And she's got the orb changer for her. So this is a complete team. I wouldn't swap anybody out. Rimuru would be the most efficient option or most viable option to swap out on. New Year's Blessing, like, Rimuru gives himself an attack buff already, right? So we don't need to double up on that. We just use the light team. Primal Demon team, Blanc is giving her own stacking attack buff. We don't really need that on that team. So Summer Millum, right, the big time AoE nuker for Valor Cup, she gives herself an attack buff. Certainly it's not as high as 70%, but it's 15 points and 25%. She already gives it. So again, I don't need to double up on it if I'm already giving it to myself to begin with. So let's try one more thing. Alright, let's put him on a burst team that does get alts very quickly. The Fire 2.0 team. Toa turning, orbs into oranges. We've got, Guy for the buff and the crit resistance. Shizu for the fire buff. We've got the attack buff from Rimuru. Violet technically already has an attack buff. 30% if she's skill fused, 20% if she's not. So obviously that is much lower than the 70% that Rimuru is giving. And, we are probably going to have more than a few alts very quickly because we are on a team based around orange orbs, which do nothing but give us alt gauge. So maybe this will be a more efficient use of his skills on this team rather than like a long stacking team. But let's find out. Alright, so turn 1, we need to orb change with Benimaru. We'll get him out of here because he is, maybe not optimized, but he is still a single target fire unit, and that's what we're kind of banking on here. We'll go ahead and send these next. We'll get some extra protection gauge off of Blanc that's underneath him, which will be nice. And then, now we don't have to worry about the poison or bind. We've got the burn applied. Okay, we can work with that hand. We're also, missed the crit nerf on Violet and everything. So let's get Violet in for Guy since he has the most orbs. We'll bring Benimaru back in for Rimuru. Yeah. And then we'll go ahead and apply some of our buffs here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So the instant damage, the attack buff, the crit pierce, the pierce power buff with Shizu. And we'll go ahead and use Toa, change this into a full hand of oranges, and this is going to get us a Shizu ult and a Violet ult guaranteed. Yeah, and then Benimaru is still sitting in the cold. So here, I mean, we could use Rimuru now. We could, certainly. I don't want to, though, because we don't have another protector. And we also don't have a good way to convert these either. But yeah, no, we don't. Well, no, we don't. So we don't have any orb change, and we have no way to cycle. So not really a great usage. Let's go ahead and get you out of here. Let's get you out of here. and we'll try and just make this work, quote unquote. Maybe we can get a whole hand of greens with the orb change from Benimaru. We certainly can. Okay, that's nice to see. So let's do that. Boom. And then we can send this full hand. Not have to worry about much. Next turn will be something interesting to see as far as what we're going to do with our hands. So super weak point. Okay, cool. Interesting. Okay. So let's bring Violet back in for Guy. And you can come in for Benimaru, who doesn't have any orbs. So, I mean, I guess this isn't the best use of the skill, but it is a use of the skill. So we'll do that. Boom, that's now Rainbow. We can now fully convert this entire hand. We got a lot of Violet orbs, 40 points. Her attack buff is going to wear off because it's only 2 turns, but we're going to replace it with a much bigger buff next time. So let's go ahead and send it, and then I'm pretty sure we can kill next turn. Okay, cheeky counter. Oh, maybe Rimuru dies. Hold on. Okay, he's got counterattacks in the brain. Please don't kill Rimuru. Please hit Shizu or something. Please hit Shizu or something. Please hit Shizu. You did. Okay, good. Oh, he's got a follow-up. Oh, thank God. Okay. So let's go ahead and do the fire buff. We're going to skip the alt buff from Guy. I maybe should have applied the attack buff earlier. It is what it is. So Toa will give us another 40 points, and then we can use the attack buff now. We still have the crit and pierce. We don't have the pierce power anymore, and we're short on points now, but I still think that we can probably get the job done with this team. So let's see. Shizu with the attack buff and the fire buff. 50k, not great. Okay. Violet, pierce, crit, fire, attack buff, 161. He should probably die to the burn. Yeah, he will die to the burn. So 6 turns in and 53k burn. All right, not great. We only had 1 stack. Did it work? Yes. Was it pretty? Not really. But did it work? Is the most important part. The answer is yes. Did we accomplish our goal of swapping an alt into a 6-hand of something and, you know, benefiting off that large attack buff? Yes. So he fulfilled his goal. Maybe not a fully optimized team. Maybe you're missing that one key unit, and he can be slotted in kind of efficiently to a point where he's a fair substitute. Not the best. Certainly not the worst substitute, though. And it's a burst team, and, you know, it needed alt swapping, right? This team has a lot of alt gauge going around with Toa. So I'd say that would be an efficient use of his skills right there. Alright, so this is kind of a long video, I know. I wanted to give him a fair look on, you know, in different team settings. His own team, a stacking team, another burst team that's not focused on greens, like his meta. And he's okay. I think he's the epitome of mid. He's not terrible. He's not overly great. He's just kind of smack dab in the middle. He can work as a viable substitution on a number of teams. Not the best substitution, but there are worse options to bring, certainly. And there are better options to bring. He's just kind of in the middle. But right now, at the 2.5 anniversary, in the middle is not really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for top tier. Tippity top. Able to stay around for a long time. Is his kit generic enough to have him stay around for a while? Yeah. Will you use him in the future because of that kit? That is up for debate, and we will have to see and how he stands the test of time. So if I were to grade him, I'd give him like a 6, right? In the middle. Between 0 and 10, 6 is, you know, on the pluser side of, you know, of mid, because he does have generic viability across the game, but his skills, I think, just are okay. But let me know what you guys think of this Rimuru. Did your opinion change? Did it go higher or lower after this showcase? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments, but that's it for me, guys. Take it easy, and I will see you all later.